I built this giant 10-foot spider using some $5 pool inflatables, spray foam, trash bags, and pool noodle. Here's how I did it. So one of the cursings and blessings of having a creative mind is that I always see things for the potential of what they could be. That makes me a bit of a hoarder. I'm always collecting things from people's trash, from the street, and I'm seeing things laying around the house and the garage, and it's hard to get rid of because I'm like, well, that could be a holiday prop. I tend to hang on to things for way too long, but when it works out, it's always fun. I knew I wanted to build a holiday spider. I started looking around and the prices were just insane. The props, the large props that you can buy. So I started to look at some tutorials and people use chicken wire. And I do use chicken wire for like holiday light displays, but it's hard to work with. You got to cut it. You can cut yourself. It's just not a fun material. So I started looking around and so what do I have that I can use to make a giant spider? And I settled on these inflatables, just a regular donut tube, a cheap $4 or $5 inflatable, and a beach ball for its head. So let's see if I can actually pull this off. So for the body of the spider, you need that general shape, and it depends really on what type of spider you want to make. So some of the other options that I looked at using one of these rattan ottomans, but it's a little bit moldy and bad at the bottom from being out in the rain all summer here in Houston. And so I think these pool inflatables are going to be a great option because they're going to give me that oblong shape of a spider. If you wanted more of like a black widow shape, you could get a really large beach ball. Fun story, spiders actually really scare me. It's probably my greatest fear in life. So I want this to be not too realistic. I want to get scared as I'm putting this thing together. But I'm going to take this pool inflatable and I'm simply going to roll it up so I have that shape. I've taken the donut and I've taken the round donut, and you can see that I've pretty much deflated it to where it's probably 20% inflated. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to wrap the donut around that. So it gives me this general, almost like a turtle shape. I'm going to take some tape. Where did my tape go? Did I do a magic trick? Did my tape somehow disappear in that process? Like, where did it go for real? I'll have to watch the freaking video back. The tape rolled all the way off off screen, all the way out to the fence. I thought I was losing my mind there for a second. The goal here is just to create a general shape. So because I've deflated it, I want it to attach like so. Those of you following along with my other videos, my other Halloween displays, it's still 96 degrees and it is middle of October. That is one of the downfalls of living in Houston, Texas. So in order to attach the spray foam, you need a smooth surface. And so you can see this has a lot of voids now, but I've got that general shape. So I'm just taking a large trash bag. I'm going to put this in. Now you'll notice here it has that void from the donut in the center. You can take plastic bags. I've got a leftover plastic tarp, and I'm just going to put this in the center here to fill that void in, so that when I put it in the trash bag, I tighten down the end here. Look at that. That gives me the perfect base for the body of my spider. I'm going to tie the end off. All right, I'm back. So what I came up with is this little zip tie looking thing that is on a loaf of bread. Yeah, spin the loaf of bread and then put this back on to keep your bread fresh. I'll do the same thing. I'm going to spin it like I'm attaching a loaf of bread. I've attached it there, and then I am going to just put a little bit of tape on it. To hold it back. So perfect, I've got the spider body. Now I got to work on the spider head. So there's a few ways that you could approach this. Again, just look around and see what you've got. You could take Amazon box, and the Amazon box could be the spider head. That's actually pretty good shape. I would probably do it this way so that it has a little bit more width for its eyes. I've taken a bag of plastic bags that I've stuffed together. You could tie these up, and that could be the head. That's what it will look with a beach ball head. Again, that beach ball is a little bit too small, so there are some larger options for that. Yeah, I put the beach ball in the plastic bag. Actually, I really like that. Let's do that. I'm going to put the beach bag in with the plastic bags. I'm just going to tie this together now. And I'm going to attach it like that. I made a giant turtle when I was in 12th grade out of paper mache, and this is looking a lot like him. So the goal in attaching this together is you just got to have it attached enough for your foam to go around it. So we don't actually have to make like a connection. Like that's going to be more than sufficient. To get foam around this. Okay, I like the general shape of that a lot. It's a little off center. Just want to straighten him up. See how that looks. Much better. I actually really like the way this is turning out. Okay, so now I'm going to put down some protective barrier for my pool decking, and I'm going to start the process of putting foam on him. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm just taking a mister with water, and I am going to mist. I don't want it saturated, I just want it misted. And the reason is because this foam that we're going to use, it doesn't actually dry. What it does is cure. And so when you put this foam on, there's a chemical reaction that occurs. And guess what it does? It uses the moisture from the air to create carbon dioxide and causes that foam to expand and to cure. So when we have moisture on our base, we're just helping this cure quicker. And so it'll make your foam expand more, and it will allow it to cure easier. And you're gonna want gloves. Trust me, if you have ever worked with this stuff and gotten it on your fingers, it's horrendous. First time I ever got it on my hands, not wearing gloves, I freaked out like a kid. If you ever got super glue in your fingers, that's what it felt like. It was not a fun experience. To go. All right, that's one can. Remember, I bought 16 cans of this, so. Now the setup for this time is hours. So you don't have to rush yourself. It's not gonna harden and firm up anytime soon. All right, so it might look like a big mess right now, but this is exactly what it's supposed to look like. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's 5 cans of foam so far for the top. Now we're gonna take our water and we're gonna mist it again. Just remember, water creates a carbon dioxide, which hastens the chemical reaction that causes this to harden. So I'm just going to mist it. And now instead of this stuff having to wait 24 hours to dry, it'll be dry in a few hours. So I'm going to let that harden for a few minutes. Oh, I got some of the foam on my leg here. That's going to be fun. So just lightly misted with the water. Applying another layer, and I'm just slightly patting it down to form a more consistent shape.
Now to make the legs of our spider, we are going to be using Schedule 40 PVC. These are couplers, 1 inch in size, and we're going to use both 90-degree elbows as well as 45-degree elbows. Now the number of each of these is going to depend upon which style of leg you go with your spider, and we'll walk you through that later in the video. Now, they do sell for the longer portions of leg, the 1-inch pipe in 24-inch sections, and that's the size that I use for my legs. But these are going to be more expensive if you buy them individually. So I would suggest I use these to do a mock-up of my legs to see how they would look at 24-inch intervals, and then to see how many couplers I needed. But if you can transport the 10-foot section of PVC, it's going to be much cheaper. $5 for 10 feet versus $4 for each 24-inch segment.
Now, most spiders have 8 legs, and so what I'm doing now is working on the attachment points for the legs. I'm going to do 3 legs on each side of the torso, and then the front legs I am going to have mounted in the front, going up and out like the spider is in attack mode, because I'm going to do a skeleton in front. So I'm using the 1-inch 90-degree attachments, PVC, and I'm just trying to gauge where I want these. Just try to keep them at the same height. I'm going to take an X-Acto knife now. And I'm just going to cut out cutting that out where that coupler is going to go. All right, perfect. So you can see there I've got the hole cut. There's my black bag. And then my coupling here will go inside just like that. And then I'll put spray foam around this to solidify this into place. I'm also going to use some super glue and put some super glue in the bottom here. And then I will wedge it in like that. So I'm using Gorilla Glue, super glue. I'm just going to apply super glue all along the back side of this. Put a little down in there. Now I will slide it in, rotate it into the direction I want, and allow that to harden. So same thing, I'll take these out. I'll apply super glue. All along that. And then I'll push it into place. Now I'm just going to use some painter's tape. Any type of tape will work. And I'm just going to ball up some tape, and I'm going to put it inside the PVC. And this is because I'm about to flip this over and to put spray foam around these to solidify them into place. And I don't want to get spray foam inside of the PVC. You're going to get spray foam all around it, and you can cut out around it, and that's perfectly fine. But I don't want to get it on the inside. So this just helps prevent that. So I've let that cure overnight, and I've come out and you can see a lot of these turned out perfect, required very little cutting. This one required no cutting at all of foam. This one was in great shape also. Had to cut some foam out here. If we look at the other side, you can see I've left one here to show you. This side, for some reason, just really, maybe I put too much foam on, but it really almost covered the holes up completely. If that happens, pretty simple. Just take your hand and just peel that excess off. This is going to get painted, so again, the texture is rough. It doesn't really matter. Then I'm going to take the tape out. And you can see here now, I'll take my X-Acto knife, and if there's any foam that keeps the pipe from being going in, I'll just trim it. And I'll do that for any of the legs. Trim off anything that needs to be trimmed. And if you've ever wondered what building one of these looks like, well, it's a mess. I've got all of my leg pipes, I've got where I've cut some, I've got the rest of my plumbing pieces carefully being guarded by Simon. I've got the tape and the pieces that I cut out today, and then we've got yesterday's mess. So I'm going to clean all of this up so that I don't get an HOA violation, and then I'm going to get to work painting. Now you can see that I'm not oversaturating, getting into all of these nooks and crannies, because I actually want that contrast in color. Because if this is solid black, it's not going to have that depth and richness. And so when you hit it like this, it turns that yellow foam into this brown type of modeling, and it's almost doing that second tier of depth for you without even having to add any additional paint. You can see I really like that contrast in the colors. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to cut my segments for my legs. And so each leg is going to require 3 sections of leg and then a small connecting joint that goes into the body. And so I've found that 24 inches for each section works well. And then that gives you 3 feet of leg width. So 3 feet on each side, 6 feet, and then the spider is about 2.5 feet. So this spider is going to be roughly 8.5 to 9 feet wide. That's a pretty massive spider. And the cool thing is you can adjust these dimensions to whatever size spider you want. Do you want to make him huge, 15 feet? Sure, go for it. You want to make him smaller? Whatever fits your space. That's the really cool thing about this being customizable. Now you can cut this PVC pipe. You can cut the PVC pipe in a whole host of ways. I prefer using a pipe cutter just because I have it and it makes it super simple. You can use a hacksaw, whatever saw that you've got to cut these. This is a 10-foot piece of pipe, so each section of this pipe will give me 5 segments of leg. And then the end goal is for it to look like this. If you're using the 10-foot section and you cut them at 24 inches a piece, you're going to get 5 of these per piece of pipe. That's a pretty significant savings. Remember, you can buy these individually. These were like $3.78 a piece for each one of these, so roughly $4 with tax. That's going to be $20 for 5 of these, whereas this 10-foot section cost me $5. And it just makes it super easy. And just like that, I've got a section of pipe. Now I'm going to need 6 3-inch pieces, and this is going to be used to connect to the base. So I'm going to begin the process of putting the legs together, and this is the shape that I am going for. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with a 3-inch section that is going to connect into the base of the spider. And then we're going to use a 90-degree coupler, and that's what we're going to have going into the cavities on our spider. Then we're going to use a section of pipe. For me, this is 24 inches. At the top of that piece of pipe, I'm going to use another 90-degree coupler, another piece of pipe. At the end of that piece, I'm going to use a 45-degree coupler. And then lastly, another piece of pipe. And there you have it. You do this for, you could do this for all 8 legs depending upon what look you're going for your spider. Remember, my spider is going to have 2 legs up in the front like it's in attack mode. So for me, I'm only making 6 of these for the side legs. So you'll repeat that process for however many legs that you're going to use, and then I'll show you what that looks like on the spider. We have gotten that classic spider shape. And you can pull them out, pull them in, depending upon what look you're going for. Because see, this isn't permanently fixed. So if I take that and I turn it, then that gives me, I just lost the leg on the other side. It wasn't attached, but you can see by straightening that out, I'm able to get a different shape out of it. So you can find the shape that works for your setup, and then you can lock this into place. I am going to glue the junction point here. So I will glue this piece onto that because that is not going to change. My neighbor out here playing the long game, guys. Started October and her Christmas lights is going up. Well, guess I got to get on my game. If you haven't followed my if you haven't watched my Christmas light tutorials, you guys need to check those out. I put about 150,000 lights up. I want to highlight here a difference that you can make. You can see a different shape on each of these legs. And I've accomplished that by using a fitting in a different way. So if you like the shape here, the more high, shorter shape, then use a 90-degree coupler on the bottom, 90-degree coupler at the top, and a 45-degree coupler on the end. That's going to give you that shape. If you like the higher, more dramatic arch, go with this shape. Instead of using a 90-degree coupler at the bottom, we're using a 45. And then we're going to use a 90 and then another 45. And that's going to give you that shape. So again, you can customize this based off of your own display and what look you're going for. The only difference is which coupler you use. 90-degree, it's going to give you that lower, wider shape. A 45-degree at the bottom is going to give you that more narrow, slightly more narrow, but that higher shape. Mix them up. So I'm just using Oatly pipe primer and PVC cement, and I'm going to make these connections into the spider because I don't want a lot of prying and pushing on these, otherwise it'll rip these out of the spider after probably a season of use, and I want to get as much life out of this as possible. So I'll take my purple primer. I'm just going to prime the inside and then the outside of my pipe. You want to make sure you wear gloves because this stuff will absolutely stain your hands purple. Use my pipe cement. I'm just going to push that in. Twist it half a turn, hold it for 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And now we have that connection solidly in the spider. So I'm going to repeat that for each of the legs. All right, so I have those 3 legs on with a nice setting sun behind me. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put my 45 degrees on here because these for me are going to be fixed also. So these are not going to change year by year, and I can just put my leg pieces in. So I'm taking a break and I'm playing around with the legs on the spider, and I originally was going to go with 3 segments of leg, but I sort of like it with just 2. And I did some measurements with 2 segments of leg and my spider. I'm pushing 9.5 feet. So pretty dang big spider. If I go with the 3 sections, I'm going to be pushing 12 feet. That's way too big for where I'm going to put this on my roof. So I think this would look really good finished out the way that I'm going to finish it, but I think this year I'm just going to go with the 2 sections and see how I like it and see how it looks. And I can always go back with 3 next year. So that's an adjustment that I'm going to make. Choose the design that works best for your display. 2 sections is going to give you this look. 3 sections is going to give you that look. Another day done, and I've run out of daylight again, but it's part of life. You can see here though how I've added the additional spray foam around those leg joints. So once I balanced them out, I did this on both sides. I did it on the top and then I flipped it over, and this will solidify those in. I'll come back and I'll hit that with black spray paint tomorrow, and it'll just look like leg joints on the spider. I'm in the final stages, guys. I am Finally getting these legs attached, and for the legs I am using 5-foot long pool noodles. I got these at Lowe's for $2.98 a piece yesterday. If I was smart, I would have ordered a head. Why are we sighing? Did you not like that part? Okay, he's not interested. Nap time. If I had been smart, though, I would have ordered these ahead of time off of Amazon or somewhere where I could have got them in black. You can get them from Walmart's website in black also. But the closer you get to Halloween, you're not going to find them. So I got them in the color that I could get, and I'll just paint them black. These are right under 3 inches in width, and the interior dimension is right under an inch. So the hole in the middle is going to be an inch. What I'm going to do is I am just measuring out 24 inches. And then you're going to have one that's 26 inches long and one that's 24 inches, because the pipe is slightly larger than the hole. And you will sit here twisting and twisting and twisting forever. So one of the tips that I use is cooking spray. And I just take it and I spray a little in each end. My grandfather used to say, actually I can't tell you what my grandfather used to say. This is a kid-friendly video. But with a little bit of lubrication, you can now see that I'm able to get that down with pretty much relative ease. So you're going to do that for each of your legs. Watch out, baby. You're going to get cooking oil on you. You don't care? You don't care? Dad cares. Daddy cares. You can see I pushed that one down. This is the short piece, the 24-inch piece. And I've left that little bit, I've pushed it all the way down to where I have that little bit sticking out. And that is the side that I'm going to connect into my spider legs. All right, legs complete. With the legs complete, I can take them over to my spider, and I'm just gonna pull until I have that little section there, and that's gonna be the part that I connect in. All right, one thing that I want to highlight here, and this is why that extra length on the noodle is good. You can see here, you can see these legs are slightly off of the ground. Well, with the pool noodle, you can just lower it a bit till it touches. Because this part is going to be covered. And for the first time since we started this project, well, it's actually looking like a spider, and that's pretty dang cool. It would have been a whole lot easier if I had gotten these pool noodles in advance in black, but now I'm going to paint them with the same black spray paint that I used for the spider. Now I'm going to work on the eyes, and these are Christmas decorations. These are ornaments that you put together and hang on a tree, but they make perfect eyes. And so you just got to determine, one, how many eyes do you want, and then two, what size. And so I've played around with a few of these, and I think these are too big. I like the look of the smaller ones. Now spiders have 8 eyes, 6 eyes. I don't know. They have more than 2. Put however many eyes you want to on your spider. So all I do here is I take that plastic bulb. You can see the outside is shiny. Take some painter's tape. I wrap it around the outside of the bulb. I don't know what I'm calling a bulb. Christmas ornament, ball. Close it up. Then I spray the inside of that with spray paint. So you get the black inside and the outside will be clear. What I'm going to use for the upper eyes are these solar animal repellers. Everything that I use in this video I will link in the YouTube description, and it'll include links to where you can purchase these on Amazon. And I want the simplest option possible, so I'm going to use the plastic ornaments for eyes down below, and then I'm going to use this as my set of eyes up at the top, and it will flash. It's not dark outside right now. You see I just used a screw through the top of that and poked it right into the film, right into the foam. So I'll do the eyes under. Maybe do one eye on each side of that. And then when it's dark, this will flash red. I played around with 2 of them. I think during the daytime it looks good with 2, but at night I could not get them to sync. I couldn't get them to sync properly. And it just looked odd because the light was pulsating from side to side. So we're going to go with the 2. Now to attach these, I'm just going to use my X-Acto knife. And I'm going to find where I want them on my spider. We'll start there. And I'm just going to use that as a template. So I'm going to cut around that template. So once I cut around it as a template, I'll pull some of that foam out. I'll pull the plastic. I'll pull the painter's tape off so I have the shiny outside. And then you got eyes. I'll use some super glue, and then I'll put around that, and then I'll push that in to make sure that that is connected. Day 17. I'm kidding. I'm like 3 days into the project, but you can see he's almost done. I've gotten the legs done, I've painted him, flipped him over, I've added the eyes, and now it's time for the final details. Just those little bit of touches that's going to give some depth and dimension to the spider. Wow, so pretty. So pretty. So pretty, baby. So pretty. You gotta take that off though and put that on the spider. Dad needs that for hair for the spider. Okay?
You gonna get mad if I take your hair?
So if you've ever seen those jumping spiders that have like black and brown fur, that's really the look that I'm going for. So to accomplish that, I bought a black wig off of Amazon, and then these are called, I don't actually know what they're called. Let me get the cardboard. These are furry leg warmers. I think they're made to go, they're for women, and you wear them. I don't know what these are for. Do they, I feel very, feel very tribal. I don't know what actually are these things made for. If you, maybe they're made to cover boots in the snow. I don't know. Doesn't snow here in Houston, Texas. They look really ridiculous, though. I mean, look at this. Oh, I painted 3 toes with spray paint. If you know what these guys are, put it in the comments. I'd love to actually know, but I'm going to take them and cut them down to strips, and they're going to go on the joints of the spider to give it some depth. That'll look cool. I debated on this wig. Sometimes you see spiders. I don't think it looks horrible to have it on the back like this. But it needs more of it. I think I'd need like 3 wigs. And I don't really want to pay 20 bucks a wig to have that covered with hair. So what I've done instead is I've just taken some scissors and a zip tie, and I'm going to cut hair off of the wig, put a zip tie at the end. Then I'm going to put these at different places on the body, and they will just press down into the foam, into some of these nooks and crannies. Not going to go anywhere. My helper's tired. You had a long day, babe? You had a long day, baby? Zip ties. No, we're not going to eat them. So we're just going to take our wig here, and I get me a chunk of hair down towards the base. Zip tie it like so. And then I take my scissors and I cut it off. So now I've got my little tuft of hair. Cut the end of my zip tie, and then I'll go stick this in a crevice. You could use hot glue and stick this down, but if you've went with the textured, rougher feel like I did, then this will be more than sufficient to hold that into place. So now we're just gonna make as many of these as this wig will provide. And when you're done, you'll end up with something that looks like it's out of the Silence of the Lambs. It's the leftover piece of the wig, a lot of zip ties, and a pile of clipped hair. Because they will push down and embed right into the foam. So just put them in random spots and then push it in. Now that's embedded into the foam. We're starting to get some hair on our spider. Just gives it that little extra depth and dimension. Makes it a little bit creepier. So I start by just cutting this lengthwise. It is going to shed like crazy. See what I mean? And now I'm going to go and I'm going to cut these in about 2.5 inch widths. The two leggings gave me 1, 2, 3, 4 legs worth. So this will give me plenty left over. Now all I'm going to do is just wrap it around. And I'm using these long zip ties. And I'm going to use 2 zip ties. And just like that, now you've got hair on your spider legs. Pretty cool. And the moment we've all been waiting for. Moving the big guy. Now he's not that heavy. It's going to be the width. He's about 9 feet. Okay. Easy. Breezy. I can only imagine what this looks like for my neighbors. Slow and steady wins the race. Now I want him to go up on the roof there. I'm going to have a spider web in front of him, but my gosh, he looks really good just sitting on the ground. I did lose one eyeball, so I'll go find that. And I got to put its other front leg on. But man, that's really cool and creepy. Can't wait to see how he looks at night.